Windows consistently outperforms SteamOS on discrete GPUs, especially in games with ray tracing and where the project is limited to 8 gigabytes of video memory. SteamOS, in turn, performs significantly better on integrated graphics, sometimes even leaving Windows behind in heavy scenes with RTX effects. These are the conclusions reached by Ars Technica, which tested several games to assess how SteamOS compares to Windows.
The author of the test notes that the main goal is to test a number of discrete graphics cards to assess how SteamOS performs against Windows. In particular, the following options were chosen.
Radeon RX 7600 32 RDNA 3 compute units with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. This card gives the most realistic idea of how the Steam machine will actually perform, as Valve plans to bundle the RDNA 3 GPU with 28 compute units and the same amount of memory. Radeon RX 7600 XT 32 RDNA 3 compute units with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. This is a higher clocked version of the RX 7600, which should typically show around a 10 to 15% performance improvement, unless the game requires more than 8 gigabytes. If the game runs significantly better on the RX 7600 XT, it likely means that the RX 7600 simply lacks the VRAM, which could indicate potential issues with the upcoming Steam machine. Radeon RX 6800 60 RDNA 2 compute units with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. This is a slightly older card, but it is the RDNA 2 architecture that powers the Steam Deck. If the SteamOS versus Windows results for this card turn out to be different than the others, it could mean that Valve has optimized the RDNA 2 architecture better than the newer generations. Radeon RX 9070 56 RDNA 4 compute units, 220 WTBP with 16 gigabytes of VRAM. A newer graphics card that we added to evaluate how SteamOS, along with the open-source AMD GPU drivers for Linux, performs on modern graphics that can be used for more productive 4K gaming. These 4 GPUs were tested on the same system. For comparison, the publication added 2 more PCs with integrated graphics. The flagship Framework desktop with a Ryzen AI Max Plus 3950 chip, Radeon RX 8060S graphics, 40 RDNA 3.5 compute units, and a combined pool of 128 gigabytes LPDDR5X. This is likely to be significantly more expensive than the upcoming Steam machine, but the base configuration is a good alternative for now, and that's the maximum performance that the integrated GPU is capable of. And AO Star Mako Mini PC with Ryzen 7 H255 processor, 32 gigabytes DDR5, and Radeon 780M. One of the most profitable options if you need a budget analog of Steam machine, but more powerful than Steam Deck. We ran the built-in benchmarks multiple times across 5 games. These aren't the latest titles, but they give a good cross-section of lighter and heavier projects, both with and without ray tracing. Even in such a small sample, the results aren't always in one direction, but certain trends and exceptions are discernible. The most noticeable, as before, appears in games that push against the 8 gigabyte limit of the RX 7600. Here, the gap between Windows and SteamOS can be large, especially in Returnal and Forza Horizon 5 at 1440p and 1080p, as well as in Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p with ray tracing enabled. The most striking example is Returnal. On SteamOS, the RX 7600 XT with 16 gigabytes practically equals Windows, while on the 8 gigabyte RX 7600, Windows runs 60 to 70% faster. In other games, the difference is smaller, but the RX 7600 consistently stumbles due to memory limitations, the author of the test writes. The rest of the results vary by game and GPU. For example, Borderlands 3 performs better on Windows than SteamOS on all GPUs tested, sometimes by 20 to 30%. For a 2019 game without ray tracing, the third board generally performs acceptably on SteamOS, but this particular game, Borderlands 3, has shown the most consistent results on Windows. In Forza Horizon 5 and Cyberpunk 2077 with ray tracing enabled, Windows also consistently outperforms SteamOS on 16GB discrete GPUs, usually by 15 to 20%. If we talk about the results of systems with integrated Radeon 780M and RX 8060S graphics, then with the exception of Borderlands, SteamOS showed significantly better results on integrated graphics compared to Windows. In Forza and Cyberpunk with ray tracing enabled, SteamOS overtakes Windows on the 780M and mostly closes the gap on the 8060S. Where Windows and SteamOS were almost equal on discrete graphics cards, on integrated graphics, SteamOS showed a small but stable advantage in average FPS.